Guys, welcome to the first PinnacleX podcast, the first one in the series, and today I am super excited. I have got an amazing legend on the show today, and someone who, wow, probably has lived the life we all dream of. He's cycled through probably most countries in the world, seen the world like it should be seen. We all think we've seen the world, but we haven't seen the world like this man. He's a person that my family, in particular my youngest brother, knows very, very well. Godfather to two of his boys. And he is someone that loves people. And I'm going to dive into something. I'm going to try and dive in and get to know our guest today really, really well, from a different perspective. And I'm just super excited to have Ron Rutland on the PinnacleX first ever podcast. Ron, welcome, my buddy.
Yes, well, here we go, Doug, and what an honor it is for me to be the first guest. And in a year's time, when you're putting out episode 50 or 100, you can look back at this first episode and I'll say, I was there at the beginning when you've gone on to bigger and better things and you have real legends on the podcast. But no, congratulations on getting it off the ground. Most people in life talk about doing things and spend all their time in the pub or doing whatever, coming up with all these great ideas and not actually acting on them. So I love the way that you've made this happen, and yeah, looking forward to following your journey.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. And yeah, I think all the guests following will actually, I don't know if they'll be as much of a legend as you, my mate, because you are the true legend in my eyes. So, well, let's just start off. Let's just dive into it. I know that you were very successful as a business person in London, and then you moved to Bangkok, and you eventually ended up in Cape Town. And I really want to know, what made you go to Cape Town? How did you come up with that decision?
Yeah, Doug, well, I'll just, I'm going to fact check you right off the bat and just say I wasn't a particularly successful businessman in London or anywhere in my life, but I certainly felt that I had great adventures along the way. I did some of the corporate stuff in London, but I was very middle tier, never going to shoot the lights out properly. But, it was made enough of a living to be able to go on holidays and good things like that and put food on the table. But I certainly was never even close to being the $1 million, or not even close to that, being that sort of type bonus kind of guy. But I had some mixed experiences in various industries, had some terrible unsuccesses or failures, if you would, depending on how you look at it, in trying to do my own business in Thailand as an example. And then in 2008, I was living in Hong Kong for the third time. I call it the Boomerang City. I keep going back there. And I was thoroughly enjoying the city of Hong Kong, enjoying the lifestyle I was living there, the people in my community. It was a really, really strong community of good people there. But I was working for a bank at the time and thoroughly not enjoying that. I sort of dipped in and out of the industry a few times and sat there in my office on my 30th floor, the 30th floor of this big building in central Hong Kong, thinking, my goodness, what have I done? I know why I left this industry in the first place. And very fortuitously, as I say, that time in Bangkok or Thailand, when I'd gone to go and, in inverted commas, find my fortune and found completely the opposite, lost everything during that adventure. But while I was there, I got involved in playing a bit of rugby and supporting the local clubs. And to cut a long story short, had some friends come out to play in a social rugby tournament that we started. And this is where a really good idea did start in a pub. And these two guys were like, Ron, this would work so well in Cape Town. It would be magical to have a social rugby event or some sort of festival in South Africa. We take our rugby far too seriously. Here in Asia, you guys are having a lot more fun with the game. So over a few beers, over a weekend in Bangkok, the idea of starting an event which became known as the Cape Town Tens came about. And I went back to Hong Kong, back to my day job the next week. And, you have those sort of, you might remember from your drinking days when you have those sort of demons after a big weekend and you feel pretty depressed and down about yourself. So I was going through one of those weeks. And to be honest with you, I didn't think too much about the idea of going back to South Africa. I just thought it was one of those ideas that was never actually going to happen. But then I got a phone call from one of the guys, and he said, Ron, I've spoken to my boss. He was working for this guy at the time. He says he's happy to underwrite the first event. You're the only person with any experience, the only person who's got the time and the capacity, and you told us how much you hate your job. And I just thought, screw it. I hadn't lived in South Africa. Well, basically, I never lived in South Africa as an adult. I was at this stage, I was about 30 years of age or 32 years of age, I guess, and had been wandering around the planet for 12 or 13 years. Never lived in Cape Town. For me, it was a bit of a foreign city. I've been there for the odd wedding or rugby match, but the idea of going to go and spend a few years in Cape Town, try something different appealed. And within a month or two, I resigned from my job, sold up everything in Hong Kong, and made my way to Cape Town. And that was home for 5 years.
Wow. And that Cape Town Tens is still a success. I mean, that's one of the tourist attractions really in Cape Town currently.
Yeah, it has become quite significant. And again, it's so rewarding when you look back at something that's just started off as an idea on the back of an envelope, and it took a few years to get off the ground. And it's also, I guess, the power of having being focused on something and one thing. And we just put all our energy and effort in, and we just said the first year was, we only gave ourselves 6 or 7 months to get the first event off the ground. And when we started trying to sell it to people, telling people, oh no, we're going to start the Cape Town Tens. People are going, tens? Like, what are you talking about? Like, tennis? What's tennis got to do with rugby? So the whole concept of tennis-side rugby was completely foreign to most people in South Africa. But we stuck with it, and in the back of our mind, I was like, is this really worth it? Are we on the right track? But we stuck it out, and we had our first event. I think we had 12 or 14 teams. So
we played in that one. We played in that first one.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was as organized as it could be, but the people that came had the time of their lives. And I think we made we always knew we wouldn't make money in the first year. We were sort of a bit of a lost leader, but just to see people having fun playing rugby, and guys that hadn't played rugby in 20 years to people who had more recently retired, it was a sort of category and for everybody. But we were just this is just people. A sport that so many of us in South Africa love, but I think a lot of people had fallen out of love with the game, like they played seriously at club rugby or whatever it was, or school rugby, and they didn't really have an outlet to play socially. So, and just the reunions of seeing friends coming together after many years and using the sport of rugby and the place of Cape Town to have those reunions was so rewarding. So I think after that first year, we knew we were into something. And from those humble beginnings, I was involved for the first 5 events, the first 5 years of the events. And it went on from 14 or 15 teams to about 120 rugby teams, and netball, and volleyball, and dodgeball, and all the other multi-sports, and brought in all these big bands. And it's pretty crazy.
Amazing. That was something incredible that you guys have actually put on the map for Cape Town, really. But let's move forward here because of our time. But so you seemingly out of nowhere. But I know it's not just out of nowhere, because these things take a lot of planning. You decided, no, hang on, you're going to now cycle through every country in Africa. And you were quite a chubby kid at the time.
Yeah, and I probably if I'll sit forward like this to hide my double chins now. But Doug, so I was sitting in Cape Town, thoroughly enjoying my life in Cape Town, doing for the first time in my life. So this is basically from 13 to 35 years of age. I was doing something that I really enjoyed for a living. It wasn't particularly lucrative, but it was just wonderfully rewarding to build something that people enjoyed. It's all about participation, which I've always been. I'm always the first person to sign up for a golf tour, a rugby tour, or whatever it is. So it was right up my alley. Myself and a friend started a charity at the same time. So doing things I really enjoyed. But living in Cape Town, I got into a bit of trail running and mountain biking. And I guess as a fat ex-prop, there were 2 sports that I never really imagined myself getting into. I always sort of kept myself busy and played touch and went to German, but I was never. But these kind of endurance sports was something that I had never really thought about. But I guess it's positive peer pressure. I found myself buying a mountain bike and getting into the craze of riding around the Western Cape. But it was a great way to explore Cape Town, Table Mountain, all of that. And as I say, I enjoyed this this lifestyle, the outdoor lifestyle. And I don't know where it came from, Doug, but somewhere deep inside of me, I grew up in Westville, a town outside of Durban. As a family, I think we did 2 holidays to Scotbro, which is about 30 miles down the coast. We never did any overseas travel, never even traveled around South Africa, had a very unadventurous upbringing. But despite that, somewhere deep inside of me, I just used to read National Geographic every month and see people living these wild, crazy lives. And I used to look at these stories and I'd go, wow, that person is just, that person is off exploring these caves in Bolivia, and that person's, built up an old Land Rover and doing a trip around Africa. Isn't that so cool? And I'd always think to myself, those people must be so rich, they must be so connected, they must be so athletic, they must be so intelligent, all these things that I thought I wasn't, and I knew in my heart that I was just like, I'm just this, chubby teenager trying to play a bit of rugby, and these people are living these crazy, wild, adventurous lives. And I never gave myself any, in my head, I never sort of gave myself any opportunity to go and live a really, truly amazing life. But somewhere deep inside of me, I had this interest.
Yeah.
And then fast forward 30 years living in Cape Town, I actually started and getting involved in different sports. I actually started meeting some of these people. Just I guess serendipitously started meeting some of these people who've done some pretty cool things. And I only started realizing, as I say, in my mid-30s, that the only difference between that person that's done that crazy thing and that person isn't necessarily because they're richer, stronger, more athletic, or braver. It's just the fact that they had an idea and acted on it. In the same way I had an idea and acted on, coming back to Cape Town and starting this event, why couldn't I extend that to other areas of my life? So it wasn't one particular eureka moment. It was like this build-up of meeting these people, reading more and more books about it. And eventually I said, screw it. I was a bachelor, no wife, no kids. And I thought, you know what, if I'm ever going to do something crazy, now's the time. And my original plan was to take a 6-month sabbatical, cycle up the east coast of Africa, Cape to Cairo. It's kind of the classic African overland route.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it in motorbikes and well, I say relatively a lot of people, motorbikes, overland vehicles, even bicycles. So there's a lot of like resources to lean into to sort of try and understand what would be involved. And I had a really good understanding. I think I've never done anything like this in my life, but I kind of knew theoretically what was needed. And then as I was planning the route, I looked at all these countries in Africa I was missing by just going up the east coast. And the route became more and more zigzag as I added in more and more countries. And eventually, I plotted this route that went from Cape Town to Cairo through all 48 countries on mainland Africa. And with a bit more research, first of all, I realized that it was theoretically possible. And with a bit more research, I realized that nobody had ever attempted that in any vehicle, definitely not a bicycle. And am I allowed to swear in this podcast?
No.
No.
You
I
can.
said, screw it. If I'm going to do something crazy, I'm going to do the craziest thing imaginable. So instead of just doing a 6-month sabbatical, I'm going to try something that nobody's ever tried and just have this one crack at doing something properly crazy in my life. Do something that's so exciting. No one's ever tried it. So I went from being, as I say, 6-month sabbatical to just selling everything in the world that I owned. And that's literally, I sold, if I couldn't get 10 Rand on Gumtree or Craigslist or whatever you listen to in your country, if I couldn't get 10 Rand, I gave it away to charity. And that was partly because I needed money to fund the trip. But also for me, it was like burning the bridges, burning the boats. Like, if I'm going to be serious about spending 2.5 years on a bicycle, because that's how long it was going to take, what's the point of leaving a whole lot of stuff in a mate's garage or storage unit in Cape Town if I've got no intention of being back for 2.5 years? Like,
so when you commit, bro. You're not turning back.
I think there's a term, and I haven't really looked it up properly, but I think it comes from the Romans, which is burning the boats, burning the bridges. It means the same thing. And effectively, like let's say the Romans were invading the UK or England, they would literally cross over on the boats, burn the boats, and basically there's no way out, soldiers. You have to win this battle. You have to take over this country. So for me, it was like selling everything was my version of that. Like,
amazing.
Not leaving anything behind. So if things get bad out there or things get tough out there, I guess practically I could go home, but in the back of your mind, I'm saying no. If I'm being serious about this,
geez, Ryan, all I can say is that I think many people listening to this will would want to now start grab that bike bar or grab their own bike, and you guys can see there's Ron's bike in the back there, boy. That thing goes everywhere with him. But I mean, just to do what you've done is just so inspiring. I mean,
like, can I just, I'm just going to interrupt if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, cool.
Me, it's not. I don't think my story necessarily inspires people want to, well, that's not my hope or my expectation that inspires everybody want to sell everything in their world and jump on a bicycle and do what I did. But what I hope is that it gives people, and it's given myself the same attitude, that whatever your version of that is, it is so doable and reachable. Like,
Yeah.
and I look at myself, like I was 120 kilograms when I started. Okay. It's a long story, but I broke my wrist 6 months before I left. I had 2 operations. I did no exercise. I was living on a couch, eating takeaway. So I just ballooned. So I was the unfittest and fattest of my life. Despite having done a bit of riding over the last few years in Cape Town, I'd never done anything like this in my life. I'd probably spent 2 or 3 nights of my life in a tent. So I had no rights to go and do this trip, and I definitely had no rights to finish it. But for me, it's like if that fat kid on a bike, as I called myself, could do that, then like I had this realization when I finished, like if I can do that, then really anything is possible. And I often like I'll speak to kids at schools, and I'll put them in, I'd say like if you look around the room now, 30 years ago, if I was in the same room and somebody said, "Who in this room is one day gonna cycle around the world?" Not one person would have pointed at me. So it's the same thing. It's like,
Absolutely.
whether it's launching a new business or, taking the plunge and asking someone to marry them, doing something that scares you, do something that's out of your like proverbial comfort zone.
Thinking
And I
bigger,
think,
thinking bigger rather than smaller. Just doing.
but it's also, and it's your thing. Like maybe it's doing your first 5K run. Like for some
Yeah.
people, that's the equivalent of cycling through Africa. And, and just the understanding that I call it the power of the made up mind. Like, if you haven't never run a day in your life and you're overweight and you're sore and you're uncomfortable and you spend every day on the couch, like it does take a huge amount of effort to get off the couch, put your running shoes on for the first time and walk around the block for the first time. And you feel like you're sore the next day and you feel like you've made no progress. And the idea of running a 5K or a 10K is just like beyond your imagination. But every day you get up, you do that, and lo and behold, you 10, 10 weeks
And I
later,
think, I think, I think, Ron, in today's times, people, a lot of people are stuck in ruts and they don't believe they can do stuff. And I think just hearing your story here might just, hopefully, people actually can just connect with that and just realize that they can achieve anything they put their minds to. I mean, they're sleeping on a couch eating takeaways. I mean, that is just so visual, and then you've basically traveled around the world. And I mean, I'm not going to get into the other stuff because I want to get into the deepest psyche of question just now. But I mean, you've traveled, you've done Asia, Europe, South America, North America, the United Kingdom, or Ireland, England, and beyond. I don't know what else I've left out, but I mean, I'm sure and you played the longest golf hole in the world as a caddy. I mean, across the whole of Mongolia. I mean, that alone is a whole story on its own. I mean, what made you do that psychologically, carrying and all that stuff? I mean, how did you cope with that? How did you go?
I think I won't. We definitely don't have it. I mean, I could literally spend 3 hours talking about cycling through Africa, but I think that the message for me, or the key takeaway, really for me personally, was when I got to London. So I cycled through Africa. I carried on through Europe and got to England, and I actually ended up watching the 2015 Rugby World Cup. So for those of you into rugby, it's obviously a significant event that takes place every 4 years. So that was the sort of thing that gave me the motivation from a timing point of view, to get to London, or to get to keep moving every
You
day.
got there and watched Japan beat South Africa.
Yeah, exactly. That was my reward. But when I arrived in London, I was 25 kilograms lighter than when I started. Obviously, I had this adventure of a lifetime, which again, I ended up going through 70 countries, 45 in Europe and in Africa, 25 in Europe. It was about 40,000 Ks, which is actually almost the exact circumference of the Earth around the equator. So if there wasn't the oceans in the way and you wanted to cycle around the world like that, it's roughly the same distance.
Sure.
But obviously, the biggest thing for me was, and I was maxed out all my credit cards. I'd borrowed money from people, so I was poor, but I'd had this like adventure of a lifetime. And the one thing that I guess that I had to take out of it, which was the fact that I looked back and I said, well, wow, like if I can do that, I've just dreamt up the hottest thing I can possibly dream of doing on a bicycle, that almost anybody in the history of the world has ever dreamt up of doing a bicycle, and I pulled it off. Like maybe you're not such a useless bastard after all. Maybe you are more capable. So it was like this midlife confidence boost that I had, and that decision. And again, you don't know where that decision takes you. So I was when I took the first pedal strokes away from Cape Town. Obviously, I was hoping my decision would get me to London 2.5 years later, which it did do. I was hoping it would give me the adventure of a lifetime, and to learn a lot about myself, and all it gave me all that. What it really gave me at the end was like, wow, like it just opened up this whole world of adventure. And it wasn't my intention just to carry on doing this kind of thing. I had no idea what was going to come out of it, but you're not the same
3
person.
World Cups.
Yeah, and so effectively, just as a very brief summary, 10 years later, yeah, I've ended up cycling all 6 continents, excluding Antarctica, obviously, about 120 countries, 3 World Cups, about 100,000 kilometers, which is about 2.5 times around the world, raised about $350,000 for charity, which is, I don't know, 7 million Rand or something like that. And just, yeah, I had this wild, crazy adventures. So, yeah, and again, it was all the decision just to get started 10 years ago, 11 years ago.
All by this kid that you said was maybe sitting in a Westville school hall and not believing in himself at all, having done no family adventures, having done nothing, and look what you've done. Ron, absolutely, I actually get tears in my eyes. It's actually incredible. But now you've ended up in the misty foothills of the Midlands.
Yeah. So after, yeah,
I mean, what? Sorry, I don't understand that now. You've gone around and you've ended up there. Explain to me why. What has attracted you?
So many of my friends, including your brother, told me, "Oh, Ron, you're living the life that we all wish we could live." And again, still a bachelor, still no wife, still no kids. So before anybody starts questioning that side of things, but the one thing that life is, I mean, it's basically 11 years on the road. I've probably spent more nights in my 40s living in a tent than not living in a tent. And it's exhausting, but it's actually quite a lonely life. Like, so on the face of it, you are having this unbelievable adventure. And for me, it has been. I mean, I still cannot believe myself. I still pinch myself when I think about the things I've seen, the experience that I had. But you do go weeks and months and sometimes years on the road, you might see thousands and meet millions of people, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, but it's always very fleeting moments. You might share a cup of tea with someone on the side of the road in Iran, or a cup of noodles in Singapore, or whatever it is. But then you're moving on, you're moving on, you're moving on. So you meet all these wonderful people, have all these wonderful experiences, but the next day you wake up and it's start all over again. And you've missed a lot on the road. Like, you miss mates' birthdays, you miss kids' sports matches. There's a lot of things you miss. You miss community.
Yeah.
You miss going to the pub or the coffee shop and seeing familiar people. The person knows your name. You miss braais on a Friday night with your mates. So I think for me, it got to a point where I was like, I've had so much fun and so much enjoyment. But what's missing is just a bit of normal community and a normal routine. And I'm lucky that, having lived in 5 or 6 different countries, traveled literally the world, after all of that travel, and this is not here just to talk up South Africa, but for me personally, I thought to myself, all the places I've been and visited, etc., the one place, if I could go and live in the Natal Midlands, the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands here in eastern South Africa, that's where I'd like to make things work. It's a tiny little town area. There's not one traffic light in the area, which is part of the appeal to it. I like the climate up here. There's good people. But I thought, what the heck am I going to do? And as I say, I really had the opposite of restlessness. Now I was keen to do just to put some roots down.
Yeah.
And I came back, rented a little cottage, and came here to figure things out. And then out the blue, got this opportunity to work at a local school. For those of you in South Africa, Michaelas, it's a pretty well-known private school here.
Great school.
Yeah, wonderful school. Lots of my mates have been here. A lot of them got their sons here. And yeah, I've done a lot of organizing of things in my life, as I talked about before, with this Cape Town 10s or putting trips together. So that's one thing I'm pretty good at. And so I run the old boys club of the school, which is ironic for a guy who didn't go to the school. But I'm getting to put all those experiences of organizing things into something here. As you said before, I quite enjoy people. So I deal with a lot of people, and I'm just loving having somewhere to be every day. I'm enjoying the routine of I have about a 10-kilometer drive to my office in the morning.
But do you still live that minimalistic lifestyle?
Yep, it's pretty.
I can't say it properly.
Yeah, no, it's a big word.
Yeah.
No, I do. I live I've obviously bought a few more shirts and a pair of nice shoes and things like that. But I just rent a little flat. It's fully furnished. I bought myself a set of golf clubs. I bought myself,
nice.
a few little bits and pieces. But no, I don't. I have no I mean, there's a lot, I have no desire to, buy a big mansion and have all the, the trappings of what a lot of people think of as a successful life. So for me, I've got a job I really enjoy. I work with people again. I work with good people. I feel like the job's got a sense of purpose. I've got into, although I've been cycling around the world and getting pretty fit one way, like you become very good at doing one thing. You don't become good at doing anything else. So I've enjoyed just, I go to Pilates, I go to yoga, I'm playing golf again. So I'm doing a regular routine of things. I've got a group of mates that I play golf with regularly. I go to Bry's, I socialize. So
Okay,
I've just
but
got what more I need.
100%. So what would you like to the audience now? What kind of advice would you leave them with? I mean, what would you? I mean, you've walked this journey. You're now where you are, and you're craving that community, and you're loving it, and I mean, you just love people. I know that. I know that personally about you. But I mean, what is it? What could you leave my audience with? The audience of the PinnacleX, podcast. What little bit of advice, or what could you leave them with?
Sure.
Some wise words
Very well.
from
Yeah, I'm
Ron
happy
Rutland.
to. I'm going to give you some of my learnings, and if people, I don't like to think of myself as someone qualified to actually give advice to other people, but things that I've learned, let me put it like that, and then people can draw their own conclusions, I guess. But I think for me, I have realized, and I actually had a conversation with a friend, funny enough, yesterday. Literally, I'm going to go and visit him when I go to the UK soon. I just, the inevitable question, how are you doing? And he's like, no, good. He says, no, I'm healthy. Me and my wife, he hasn't got any kids. He's, similar age. He's got, me and my wife are healthy. We've got enough money to go out to restaurants whenever we want, and we get to walk our dog every day. Like we are, what more do you need in life?
Yeah,
And it really is for me, like that really sums it up. Like I've just, I guess, having put myself through the ringer, and you just learn how little you need. Like one of the great things of cycling on a bicycle is that you can actually only carry so. I've got no support vehicles. It's just me and my bike and my stuff. So you've got your tent, your sleeping bag, your little gas stove, your camera, your phone to stay in touch, your passport. You really have, and that's everything. I mean, I would go 2.5 years with just two sets of underpants and a couple of t-shirts and have the best time of my life. And
yeah,
so I've tried to, and that's I found now, like I'm living a really simple life here. It's a 10-kilometer drive to work. I go weeks without seeing a traffic light. I just I get to do something I enjoy with people I enjoy. I'm feeling fit and healthy. And I go to the pub when I want. So like it really is, and I've got I've got good people in my orbit.
yeah.
And I really just think to myself, like at this stage, there's nothing else. I actually don't want for anything else. Like I'm really lucky. Like maybe I want to lose a little bit more weight or this, or do a
Mm,
little bit better at my job. But in terms of like stuff and things like that, I really don't feel like I need much more in my life. So I guess that's one thing that I've learned. And again, that's just where I am in life and pretty
it
happy with
is.
that.
Yeah.
The
So
other thing, which is sorry to interrupt, the other thing
no,
is,
no,
I
it's
mean,
cool.
which also really, I think, is that like the power. I hate to sound like a teacher, but the power of the made-up mind is an incredible thing. Like if you're truly all in on something, like but genuinely, not hedging your bets,
Yeah,
like you actually go all in on something, you might not succeed, but you're going to give yourself a heck of a good chance at doing it. And a single-minded focus, as I say, a genuine commitment to doing something. The mind really is extraordinarily powerful. And yeah, I think the times in my life when I've been the most stressed or unhappy or in inverted commas feeling unsuccessful, I think is when I've been trying to do too much. And the times I've been happiest, most focused, has been when I'm doing one thing. And for me, my one thing now is focusing on my new job, my new career, and I'm not trying to do anything else. Like I enjoy my social life and exercise and things like that. But this is my focus now,
mm.
and I want to be the best I can be at this job.
Well,
And
I think my class are going to be very well. They're very privileged to have you in the first place, but yeah, very very happy to have you, my bud.
yeah,
You are an amazing person to have there. And yeah, I wish you all the best, and I know you're going to do well. You just you've got that focus, that love for people, and yeah, you're going to do exceptionally well. You mentioned, I think you mentioned a book to my brother. Didn't you? He told me that you told him about a book that was very, I think, Die with Nothing or something along those lines.
Die with Zero.
Die with Zero. It was quite an interesting book. Anyway, look it up, guys. If that's, it was quite an interesting book. Anyway, Ron, I think we're running out of time here. We might have to do this again sometime, but I really appreciate your time, my friend. And for you guys out there, I hope you get something out of Ron's story. We could have gone on for hours, really gone on for hours. He's busy. And I just appreciate, Ron, you taking the time out. It's been an absolute pleasure having you as my first ever PinnacleX guest. I look forward to catching up. I'm going to put all Ron's details, guys, on the podcast, on the notifications. So if you want to check out his sites, his websites, and connect with Ron, please do so. One of the most humble human beings you'll ever meet. And Ron, thank you, my mate. Thank you so much for everything.
No, pleasure, Doug. And as I say, congratulations. I'm looking forward to following your PinnacleX adventure. And again, as I said to you the other day, like I just admire people who do things on their own terms, and it's exactly what you're doing. So keep that single-minded focus, and you're going to absolutely knock it out the park.
Good man. Thanks very much, Ron. Keep well, eh? Okay, cheers.